Over a period of time, when we started migrating our applications from monolithic architectures to microservices architecture, we saw that there was a paradigm shift to adding lots of libraries and code inside a single microservice in order to make the microservice resilient, secure, flexible, etc. However, that itself is a con for going for microservices. Let's see what is service mesh and how is it solving these problems which we are facing with microservices today.
Press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss any update from Tech Primers.
Let's consider an application which we are going to develop as an individual standalone service, and we want to make it more robust and we want to deploy it at any time. So what we do, we make it secure by adding authentication layer to this particular application. Over the authentication layer, we need to authorize who is going to use which particular endpoint. So we add authorization to it as well. And in order to make it plug into existing microservices architecture inside the firm or inside your team, so we add service discovery to this particular service. And in order to make it resilient, we add resiliency patterns like circuit breakers using Hystrix or any other implementation. Additional to these, in order to make sure you're able to track your microservice logs across your microservices, we add distributed tracing to it. And in order to monitor this particular application, we add monitoring support as well. So what happens is when we deploy this into a microservices architectural design pattern, we have so many microservices with exactly the same repetitive implementations in every microservice, and all these are created as libraries and we use it with the technology stack which we use. Over a period of time, people started talking about containerizing this application to make it robust while testing it from your dev till prod. So what did we do? We added a containerization over this application and we made it a containerized application and we started deploying it into Docker or Kubernetes. And after a while, we started embracing the concept of polyglot. So people started developing applications with different technology stacks. So there were applications with Java, Node.js, Python, Golang, Ruby, etc. in the same deployment. Consider this case where you have to have all these layers built specific to this particular application. If you consider the Java space, we have Spring Boot, which considers all these implementations as a client library and you can use it in a Java application. However, if you move to a Node.js application, you will have to use the corresponding libraries which are specific to Node.js. Similar case as in Python, Golang, and Ruby as well. So what happens is the rules which are present inside the Java layer, the client library which we implemented using Java, is different from what we use with Node.js, Python, Golang, Ruby, etc. This became an overhead when we started creating multiple services when our deployment with multiple technology stack. Imagine what if these services are now merged into a single component which is unified across these types of polyglot deployments. Easy, isn't it? But it's not that easy as it sounds because we need to have all the capabilities which we provided as a library in individual microservices and add it into a separate process which is embedded in the same container. This type of architectural pattern is called as a sidecar pattern, where a process which is a very lightweight process sits along with your main process inside the same container and it acts as a proxy. So any request coming into your Java application or your Node.js or your Python application has to go through this particular layer. These are called as sidecar proxies. Now, in order to manage these proxies, how do we push changes to these sidecar proxies? That is when we use something called as a control plane, which controls all these proxies. So the control plane is like a master server which updates all these sidecar proxies and it gets all information from these proxies. For example, if you want to get stats of how many requests are coming in into the Java and the Node.js application, these data are all collected from the sidecar proxy and sent to the control plane. So using control plane, you can do lots of changes onto your sidecar proxies. This pattern or a concept of having a control plane and a sidecar or a data plane is known as service mesh. Imagine there are hundreds of microservices. That is when microservices architecture created a mess, and people came up with the concept of service mesh, which solves the problem of creating a mess with your microservices architecture using a sidecar proxy which can run within the same process or the container which acts as a proxy for your service. Now let's look back at the history of how microservices got created. This is a slide which I borrowed from a video, 9 Steps Awesome, from a Red Hat architect. Let's look at the history of microservices. Initially in 1999, that's when the concept of continuous integration via extreme programming started. Later, the Agile Manifesto got created in Feb 2001, and AWS created their first EC2 instance in 2006. That's when AWS launched their first EC2 instance. Later, the concept of DevOps was coined in 2009. Java introduced Java Enterprise Edition 6 in 2009. Netflix moved all its services to Amazon AWS in 2010. Later on, Dropwizard was launched in 2011. Vertex was launched in June 2011. Again, Ribbon was created by again Netflix in March 2012. Hystrix again was created by Netflix in March 2012. And then ThoughtWorks Radar started assessing microservices architecture, which has been followed and people have been using it for a while as a part of their March 2012 Technology Radar magazine. Later on, Netflix again launched the Eureka, the discovery service implementation, in July 2012. Docker got launched in March 2013. Spring Boot was launched in September 2013. And microservices was defined as a proper architectural style by ThoughtWorks with its leading architects like Martin Fowler and Lewis in March 2014. And finally, Kubernetes was created in 2014 of June. So this is how microservices have evolved over a period of time. And we saw lots of supporting implementations for microservices, right from Dropwizard till Spring Boot. These are different implementations which we saw in the earlier part, where we said these are different libraries which we started using as a part of the microservices implementation. All these needs to be handled inside the platform as a part of your orchestration of your deployment using Kubernetes. That's when the concept of service mesh evolved. Right now, if you see inside the service mesh industry, Kubernetes uses Envoy as a data plane and it uses Istio as a control plane. Parallelly, there are competing products like Linkerd, which is also a data plane, which can run as a sidecar proxy along with your microservice. Also, we have the Nginx implementation, which is again a data plane, and Conduit, which is a control plane created by, I think, Linkerd creators. These are different tools which are implementing this concept of service mesh, and service mesh is a hot topic because everybody is trying to move to Kubernetes, and with Kubernetes embracing Envoy and Istio as the service mesh pattern, people are more geared towards the performance and the implementation patterns across all these different service mesh implementations. I hope you guys got a basic idea of what is a service mesh. I've not tried implementing service mesh yet. Let me know if you want to see any service mesh implementations. I'll try to make a video on that. As always, if you like the video, go ahead and like it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to it. Meet you again in the next video. Thank you very much.